Well, good evening. I'm your host, Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom Hypno Acuity Podcast and Cowboy Wisdom Hypno Acuity, presenting 7 ways why I rose out of my childhood environments. I've been watching things in life, and I watch myself. And what I really discovered is we move away from home into a different place, but the representations, the viewpoints, opinions, yet our subconscious mind and our inner landscape never leaves home. And so we keep going forward with the same thing. And I ask myself, how does where I grew up affect my life today? And if you really look at it, you can see it through the world. And I grew up on a farm in South Dakota, and it was a small town. And I really took the gossiping and all the talking about people and things like that with me till about 3 years ago. And then I realized how foolish I was. I really understand people can leave home, but they never internally leave home, because I still talk about the farm and I still talk about this, but I still have the viewpoints, opinions, beliefs, and all the ingrained stuff that I left there with. All the stubbornness, hardheadedness, the farming. So I awakened to understand you can leave where you grew up, yet subconsciously and in your mind, you never leave where you grew up. And I really witnessed that through the world today. And you have to open up to understand that. I discovered this in myself. And so why does your childhood environment still affect your life today? Well, for me, it was, we had some challenges within the family. We had some addiction problems with some alcohol in my family, and that stayed with me. And whatever was told to you in your childhood is still ingrained in the subconscious. Mine was anyway. And, when things go awry from where you think they are, you stay inside. That becomes a comfort zone and keeps you where you're at. And I stayed there. And what I really realized is, however you was talked to in school and stuff, that's in your life today. All the things that were said to you in your childhood and all through your life that was negative, good, bad, or indifferent, is ingrained in your subconscious mind. And something about the world today is we still have all of our ancestors' beliefs, opinions in our life, and we still live inside them today. But what we really live inside is a third world enslaving mindset. And it isn't making it a big deal. It's about admitting it that's there. How does your childhood affect you today? And if you really want to rise out of the manipulation of your life, you rise out of the manipulation of your parents in your childhood today. I realized this. I manipulated myself. The world didn't do it. I manipulated myself to be a people pleaser, try to get along with people, do things to get along, rather than being afraid to make somebody frustrated. It's okay to make somebody frustrated, because they ain't frustrated with you. They're frustrated with themselves and their inabilities. And I really witnessed that the last 10 years of being in the electrical trade. From when I got in at the beginning to the end, it was a lot different. But what I'm really saying is, how do you serve your ego? And why do you serve your ego? See, your ego changes this. I've caught myself doing this. And once you catch yourself and you start doing it, you start really realizing people serve their ego. Their egotistical arrogance, know-it-all ignorance. Pick me, I did. If I ain't paying attention and listening to myself, I still do. Then I step into poopy do, and then I get into all the sewer of never do, and oh my God, get into melba hiss. Then I start hissing, and That basically hissing and pissing in the wind is what I do. You know, the world is stuck as a servant to the egos of the world. And the only person that was never stuck in his ego was Gandhi. To me, that's my. And I've been to a lot of classes, and the more you think you know, the more a servant you are to your ego. Oh, I was good at that shit. You know, when I get to stand up, I get to stand up here, and this is like a confession. I'm confessing all my inner BS to the world to liberate me from me. And if that help open somebody else up to liberate them, I'm a success. Liberation rises, thinking no bestow ye in yesterday. Inspiration is liberation, thinking no bestows you in yesterday. And you know, something I really opened up to admit, the physical environment has frozen in time representations that we embellish and ingrain in ourselves. So how do you still live in the representations from your childhood and your environment, your community, your family, your friends, and all that? And how did your community speak and things like that? See, my family was never, well, in my mind, I was minded in my mind. I always thought this and it wasn't that. So how are you thinking this is about you're trying to look good in other people's eyes in the community, then you despise yourself because you didn't have the material chattels they did. And I didn't. But you know, something I understand now and I never ever before, we was fine. Just the way I am. I'm enlightened, brightened, and bold right here, right on this deal. Wherever I walk, I'm bright, bold, and enlightened. Now, how did your parents talk about your community and other people? And how did they feel about themselves? See, I ingrained an my insecurity from my parents and in my environment. But how did your parents talk about your community and other people? Well, I was from South. Gossip was the main thing and the main entertainment in small towns. Still is when you go back there. I don't get involved no more. If it is about inspiration, wisdom, and insight, take flight. I stopped getting involved in it. But how do you want to look good in the eyes of your community, your parents, rather than feel good about your own talents? That's something people really want to do because they really want to be up in the world and say it is. But it's how you think. How do you think the community viewed you, and how did that view control your life and still control your life? Sovereign liberation is what Cowboy Wisdom Hypnoacuity is about. Stop being controlled by the outside world, and liberation rises you out of your current situations with the courage to question and comprehend your life in the present moment. Because you will rise out of the past in the present moment. So how did you view everybody thinks they're this tough and nobody bothers them, but it does. And so how did your parents and you talk about your community, and how did you try to look good in the community rather than feel good at peace in here? See, everything is in here. This up here, well, that's kind of leaves you in the stink of the overthink. How do you feel about yourself from your childhood, your parents and everything? How did your parents talk to you as other people? Me, I had people talk some unsavory things, and I had a brother that used to think he's making fun of you, and it was funny, but it really was hurtful. And, you know, people, and I'm guilty as crap of that. Sometimes what you think is funny is very hurtful to somebody else. And how many people have you ever had do that to you? And what was your inner dialogue as a child? How did that inner dialogue go? Did you have the courage to move forward, or did you kind of berate yourself, or did you kind of try to hide from people? See, the world, bullies succeed in the world because people think it's funny and they're part of the in crowd. But bullies are usually the insecure ones, and the people getting bullied are the ones that get made insecure by the bullies. But if you ever watch, bullies get by with it because nobody in school, because teachers and them don't want to get involved in it. And how did your teachers talk to you? What was said to you in school? How was you the gossip of the school, or people talk bad? They did me, and I have to admit it did bother me up until probably 25, 30 years ago. What people think of me is none of my business. How I feel about my wisdom, insight, and talents rises me to the liminal carpet glide. And all liminal carpet glide is above your thinking, knowing, memory, mind, and everything it's done. So if you rise above it, you can kind of maneuver out of your own manipulation of yourself. The only one manipulating your life is you. But how does the socialized ways, school system, everything and society manipulate your life without you realizing you're the one doing the manipulating? And what is your inner dialogue today? And the fallacy is you can never, ever make a positive thinking is a limitation. Listening for inspiration to rise. See, positive thinking shuts your mind, locks you into your mind. Listening for the flow of inspiration is up here. And it actually comes from Mother Earth. You can feel the inspiration and the good. If you get grounded, you can feel yourself attached to Mother Earth. But a thinking memory mind is never grounded. You got to feel the grounding. And so this was another one. What was the family conversations around the dinner table? How did your parents communicate? How do you mirror your parents' communication? I did. I mirrored my parents' communication. When I was married, I went back. I got divorced in 94. And one thing I can say, my ex-wife had zero to do with the divorce. She had what was on her side, but I was 100% responsible for my side. And I communicated with her the same way my parents communicated. And I made a vow I was going to rise and expand out of that to have a communicated listening relationship. And I finally matured enough to have it. But what was the conversations around the dinner table? Was they always nitpicking at somebody, or was never nobody good enough? See, that's the thing. We always, one thing in my family, you better, if you miss Sunday dinner, you better be in an ambulance on the way to the hospital, because you're going to be. That was one thing our family had, was Sunday dinners. And man, were they good. But they were so good you didn't want to miss them. It was almost like it was worse missing them than anything. But see, one thing we've stolen on this busy and productive world is communication within the family. There's a lot of families that have it. But you look at it, people are so busy going nowhere thinking they're doing something, and they stay stuck in the muck of yesterday. So what was the conversation? What was said about you? What are you now? What was said to you as a child that you're unable to admit to, that's holding you back today? There's a lot of things, but here's the thing. If you can communicate it away from yourself, you can open up to communicate with your daily life. And that's something that Cowboy Wisdom Hypnoacuity does, shows you how to communicate with your daily life. And not making it about business, but about communicating, having fun without being rude and crude and just obnoxious. I was good at all that. Oh, I can do that good. But now it's about listening for what other people think and say. What did your parents say to you? What did your teachers say? What did your grandparents? What did everybody say to you? How did they speak to you? Did they speak respectful or did they speak discouraging, call you inept and you lack the mental capacity to do it? All that little stuff may not mean anything to you on the surface, but how is it on the subconscious level? You got to question yourself to see what that is. And how did teachers talk to you? Me, I was never a teacher's pet. I was more like the anarchist in their mind. But you ever notice the troublemakers are the ones that rise the world out of being controlled? Teachers' pets are controlled. Troublemakers are always liberated. But when I listen for my inner troublemaker ingenuity, I rise because I learned to listen to the world and all the people. Because whenever there's a conversation, there is nuggets of wisdom flowing for me to expand. I used to have to be the center of attention. That's called a limelighter. That ain't fun no more. I want to be the quiet one in the corner, absorbing the wisdom, insight, and clarity of the situation to move forward. And how did you communicate with your family, friends? And how did you feel about your friends? Did you try to please your friends? I did. I don't anymore. I could care less. I just want everybody to be healthy. But how did you communicate with your family and friends? What did you say to your parents? And how did you communicate with your friends? Did you try to make friends and try to do everything to please them? I did. I don't know more. I hadn't since probably 1998. No, 1978. See, what was your communication with the community? And were you one that would listen to the older people of your community? One thing I love to do is talk to old ranchers and old farmers. The ones that grew up in the Wranglers and the overalls. Get them to talking about what went on in their life. There is nothing more fun than listening to a rancher talk about what happened before we had all the modern conveniences. They come up with some heavenly, hellacious stories. And I was working in the oil field, worked with a gentleman by the name of Mac Taylor. He is 72, but he just drove oil field truck. Getting him talking about the oil field, I was there in 77, in the late 50s, early 60s. Oh man, that guy could come up with some stories. And they were funny. And some of the stuff they used to be, they were very innovative, but it was funny. And he could tell a story better than anybody that I heard. He's an old quiet guy, great guy. I didn't realize how many great older people, elderly wisdom, the wise people I grew up with. And my uncle and my dad, they were fun to talk to. All my uncles were. But what was your communication between your friends and your classmates? And how did you get along in school? I was never very, very well liked. So I just grew up with that and I'm fine with it. It used to bother me, but now I am who I am and I'm at peace with me. And that's all it is. I'm at peace with me. And that's all that matters. What are you trying to hide from your childhood or any part of your experiences from the world? And you don't have to go blabbing this around, but they silently control you through fear, drama, trauma, hate, revenge, and all that. But how are you? What are you trying to hide from the world? Are you willing to go out in the middle of nowhere or go to a park and sit down and write it out on a piece of paper and just write everything that comes to you? Just write it out until it all comes out. Once you get it out, then you can set yourself free. But don't do it in your house. Never do anything negative in your home. Always go to a park or running water or go out in the middle of nowhere and just communicate all your dismay away. But if you write it on a sheet of paper and go by a park, just sit there and write it. And when you get done, get up. And as you're walking, just start shredding it. As you walk by a garbage can, throw it in the garbage can and keep walking. Because fear, drama, trauma, revenge thinking, insecurity, immaturity, are your subconscious mind frozen in time representations, security guards. Fear is a subconscious mind security guard because it kept you safe at one time. So are you willing to communicate them away? And your comfort, and and once you understand that's a security guard, you understand fear, drama, trauma, all the unwanted stuff is your comfort zone of limitation, barriers, and blockages that you're hiding inside yourself. Everything you want to get rid of, you're hiding because there might be some unsavory feelings and emotions. But if you're willing to question them and admit they're there, you can start rising out of them. And see how, do you want to shift or do you want to rise? That's up to you. I like to rise because I want to leave it all behind. And see, whatever you're trying to hide from the world, chides and hides in your memory mind, and it really stops you from moving forward. So I unwind my liberating lingo to communicate away all dismay. I prudently poke my bear of dare to admit to me I was stubborn and hard-headed. To be rich, healthy, wealthy, everything I don't want, I was too stubborn and hard-headed to experience the experiences to rise because I had to be a know-it-all. I like that know-it-all. No. But see, we want to be a know-it-all and an egotistical arrogance, but we are a servant to our ego and all of our viewpoints, opinions, and beliefs. Without us really realizing it, we do it because we've been taught ourselves all the way through this. So when you really want to rise out of your propagandized education embedded with third world enslaving mindsets, parents, family, social communities, way of thinking, viewpoints, and opinions, and beliefs, to instantly realize, admit to me, now's the time for me to rise out of the backdrop my childhood terrain, high school backgrounds that are embedded with me, admitting to me all my life activities are embedded in my subconscious mind that keeps me binded in my frozen in time representations. It all turned to ice as my inspirations thaw my rivers, my flowing rivers of revelations, revolutionizing, enterprising vigor, lionizes animated trailblazer, intuitive, omnific nous that neons my omniscient utopian savvy. For me to soar of serendipitous opulence, appreciating me and my gusto of gratitude, to forever rise and shine on my cloud nine that chauffeurs me through life with ease. My name's Robert Wilson with Cowboy Wisdom Hypno Acuity. And may your life be as blessed as you are a blessing to me in the world.